For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale. Pakistan's apparent peace overtures to India has meant that there has been a lower level of violence on the line of control between India and Pakistan over the past several months. And yet, there are sporadic incidents, sporadic infiltration attempts, which are not stopping on the line of control between India and Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir, especially both north and south of Pir Panjal. That's the subject of this evening's gist, our daily program on StratNews Global. And joining me on this program is Lt Gen Anil Bhatt, former DGMO, Director General Military Operations, former Corps Commander in Srinagar of the 15th Corps, and strategic analyst of strategic issues between India and Pakistan, and of course, India and China. Welcome to this program, General Bhatt.
Thank you, Nitin. It's always an honor and pleasure to be there with you on this program, and I'm really honored.
Thank you. Like I was saying in the introduction, Pakistan and India actually agreed to a ceasefire or a renewed ceasefire on the LOC some months ago. It was felt that now the incidents in Jammu and Kashmir as well as on the LOC will be reduced. But going by the trend and some of the reports that we did on StratNews Global recently, in the past 2 years or so after the removal of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir, it is apparent that Pakistan is not stopping the attempts to push in infiltrators into Jammu and Kashmir. What do you make of this trend, really?
Nitin, I would start with that their peace overtures were in response not to goodwill, but to our punitive actions on the line of control. Because of our punitive exchanges, especially in 16 Corps and 15 Corps, Pakistan had to look for peace, and that is why they agreed for the ceasefire. But their strategic intent of always keeping the pot boiling in Kashmir, that has not gone away. And the complete infrastructure of training, launch pads, and providing assistance to infiltrators to get into Kashmir, that has carried on. That is manifested on ground in the report which you have given, where infiltration has continued. Terrorists who have been neutralized or caught on the LC indicate the equipment, everything with them indicates there is a Pak complicity in it. This has continued. Their intention of always keeping activities in Kashmir at a high point has always been there.
And that has not gone away, as you said rightly. Also, as somebody who's served in Kashmir for so long, and finally as also the Corps Commander in 15 Corps, you would have seen so many ways of infiltrating, so many attempts to infiltrate, ways and means and methods to infiltrate. But going by what we have found in some of the FIRs and the reports given by the security forces to the police stations, all that, the level of sophistication of support in terms of gadgets, in terms of weaponry, in terms of training, is really showing a much improved kind of a posture amongst the jihadis who come in. So clearly, there is a Pakistani army hand there. Would you think that?
Definitely, Nitin, the weapons which they have got, the radio sets which they have, and the kind of training they have been given, there is total Pakistani army's hand in it. It is not being done by some uncontrolled elements in Pakistan, which the Pakistan government or army is not able to control. It is just with their help and assistance. That is indicative from the weapons they carry, all the other sophisticated items which they are carrying. And this is continuing. This has not stopped. If infiltration has reduced on the LC, it is because of our more robust and active response there. It is because how we have been able to activate our fence and ensure that no infiltration takes place. It is not because of the effort from the other side supported by the Pak army.
It is a very important point that Indian Army's posture and the security forces' overall security grid in Jammu and Kashmir has undergone a qualitative change over the years. Apart from the three-tier kind of security or the grid on the line of control, there is also improved intelligence, I guess, in the hinterland and the better coordination between different security forces. As someone who's commanded the 15 Corps and was also part of the unified command there, uh, would you think that the improved coordination between security forces has also meant that whoever has managed to escape or managed to slip through does not have too long a kind of endurance? I'm talking about jihadis in the hinterland. Has that been a good sign of late?
Firstly, Nitin, I totally agree with you. Our strength in Kashmir, apart from all other things, is the absolute coordination and synergy which exists between the army, the police, the CRPF. There we work in unison and in harmony. And that is manifested on ground in the kind of results. Before me, and of course, for me, as a corps commander, this was my primary role to ensure highest level of synergy. And when I go now also to Kashmir, that has been continued by my successors and is one of the reasons that we are so successful in Kashmir.
So, coming back to Pakistan's intentions, while they talk peace on think tank circuits and in diplomacy, one of the reasons maybe they talk peace and they want to show, at least outwardly, that they desire peace, is to come out of the FATF grey list, which India has managed to sort of prove to the world that this is Pakistan-backed proxy war in Jammu and Kashmir. Do you think Pakistan will ever give up, despite its own contradictions, own turmoil, the desire to get Kashmir back, which of course is not possible given the way it has panned out over these last 70 years, 75 years. But the fact is that their strategic intent, like you mentioned right at the beginning, does not undergo change. Is that because the Pakistani army is very existence is dependent on what they do in Kashmir, or what are there other reasons you think?
Nitin, that is the primary reason. The Pakistani government and the powers in Pakistan, which is primarily the army, their raison d'etre for existence is a threat from India. And that threat from India is from nowhere but because they feel that Kashmir is an unfinished agenda. They have to consolidate power within their country by their politicians, and for their military to be relevant, they have to always talk Kashmir and continue the activities there. But this is pragmatically someday the Pakistani army has to realize that this is a failed attempt. This has not succeeded for the last 70 years, 75 years, and will not. And they have to take on a path which is different. But their default setting does not permit them to do that.
I think that's very well put. Default setting, like in a computer, their mind is wired to take on some trouble or create some trouble in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in the Kashmir Valley. But looking at the larger picture, uh, assessing the Pakistan Army's abilities and its capabilities, they would have thought after 15th August 2021 that the situation in Afghanistan has given them control, the much desired strategic depth that the Pakistani army keeps talking about has been achieved. But going by the events since then, would you think that the Pakistani army or the Pakistani nation as a whole has miscalculated its influence over Afghanistan, and that has not panned out the way that they wanted in Afghanistan, which means they might want to create further trouble in Kashmir? Is that linked in any way?
Firstly, I would say the there. If you see what has happened in Afghanistan, to an extent, to some part of the army, it gives an view, an idea that they can do something similar in Kashmir. which is of course not possible.
Right.
But the second is, as things have moved and as times have moved, they have realized their controls in Afghanistan are minimal. And thirdly, and most importantly, is a blowback which can take place in their frontier region. So, whatever they would have had to gain from Afghanistan in a few years, there is going to be a trouble which is already brewing and a blowback in their frontier region. That, along with Kashmir, if they want to keep two fronts ready, it is Pakistan Army's problem. And they have to take a review of that. And if you see the document which had come a few months back, where they did talk of peace with the Indian Army, with India. Now, I'm not sure if it is a facade, it is just a tactical maneuver, or they really seriously feel so. But for the good of Pakistan, as a nation, and for the Pakistan Army, they have to look at burying their hatchet in Kashmir and going beyond, forward ahead of it.
Well, they do talk about that in that national security strategy, which was released, at least the public document. But given our experience with Pakistan over so many decades now, it's difficult to imagine that Pakistan Army will give up so easily. But coming back to Jammu and Kashmir and the kind of incidents that we have recorded and we have noted over the past couple of years on the LOC and in the hinterland, uh, would you think that the world needs to know a little more about it, and it would be a good idea for India, any of the Indian government's arms, or even otherwise, the whole dossier of all these activities and the clear indication and clear evidence of Pakistani involvement in terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir should be shared with the world, because what happens is many a times we get equated and hyphenated with Pakistan, and the world refuses to believe that Pakistan is creating so many incidents in Jammu and Kashmir. What would you advise as a former corps commander and a strategic analyst? What should India do?
Nitin, I totally agree with you. And if you see the kind of FIRs which your team went through and has it published, you see the kind of details now which are going into the FIRs. And that is the start point to create these dossiers. We had taken a conscious decision in Kashmir that all of these infiltrations and wherever there is a foreign terrorist involved, all records, all dossiers, and evidence which we can put forward in front of international community should be made. For this, in many high-profile cases, NIA along with the forces in Kashmir has done excellent job. And what is more important is our embassies abroad, especially in Europe, in USA, need to very loudly play it out. We also have to do it through our think tanks, which are there all over internationally, and give proof to the world of Pak complicity, which continues.
Yeah, it's the proof is very evident and it is readily available. I think you put it rightly. I think maybe some of the work that our team has done may help in that sense, and I'm sure much more work is done by other agencies also. But looking back at say last 2.5 years now, after removal of Article 370 on 5th August 2019, and I'm sure you've gone back to Kashmir and sort of personally looked at how situation is, how the scenario is. What is your assessment of the progress since then, and what lies ahead as far as that state is concerned?
Uh, my recent visit to Kashmir indicates, Nitin, that out of the counter-terrorist operations were two parts. One is kinetic and non-kinetic. In kinetic operations, we have the better of them. We are in a very comfortable situation. The neutralization of terrorists is being taken on. Even local recruitment has reduced. There is we have been able to do quite a bit, and that of course has to continue for a little more time. But more important now is the non-kinetic dimension of it. And in the non-kinetic dimension, definitely the army has a reach to the furthest village. We can assist in it, but it is more of a whole of government approach which is required. We have an excellent lieutenant governor there, and development activities are being taken seriously. In the long term, This is going to help. One, and most importantly, to mainstream the Kashmiri people. There is a degree of alienation that has to be removed. We have to create engineering colleges, IIMs, even AIMS in Kashmir to mainstream the local people there. Because the large majority, for them, 370 is not an issue. They want to live their life, they want to get into their professions, and they will continue with it. And that is why development activity and these non-kinetic operations are now much more important in Kashmir. 370 removal has had a very good effect. In fact, as I could make out, majority of the people, to them it does not matter. Yes, the UT and the state is a sensitivity, and that the government, I think, at the opportune moment will look at it.
Yes, I'm sure they'll look at that. But you rightly said, I think livelihoods and jobs are more important to people than insurgency. We have come a long way from what was the situation in 1990s, and you've grown through the army, also superannuated, doing all that those tour of duties in Kashmir. But the fact is that the people want peace. The people want their livelihoods to be secure and more opportunities for maybe doing entrepreneurship. But in that context, one final question. The constant debate, I'm sure, in the security forces that happens is how much force is enough in Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, does it have to be overwhelming numbers like it used to be earlier, or it has to be calibrated now and they should be little less visible in the streets and in the localities and rural areas? What would you think would reduce the alienation apart from giving them jobs, giving them opportunities? Do you think the shadow of security forces presence needs to be reviewed once, or do the people really have anything of that kind in their mind about security forces?
Definitely, one is, Nitin, a kind of a grid will require to be maintained for some time, because what I said is power complexity continues,
Yes.
and to a degree they have an ability to increase violence for a short while. We have
Right.
to prevent that, and for that a security grid is required. But yes, should it be visible, or it should be in a manner that common life for a common man goes on? It's very important that very slowly the symbols of normalcy are seen. And if you see over the years, the reduction has taken place in Srinagar town. Even in our whole grid and profile, we have now moved our uh, military formations, the reserve formations, away from the hinterland. And yes, slowly this review has to take place. Even in 16 core, there's been a reduction. This will be vis-a-vis the violence, and as we control it, as the number of terrorists reduce, this review will continue taking place and needs to be done.
You're right, absolutely. I think it has to be well balanced because just as we speak, over the past 2 days in Naushera, there was a similar infiltration attempt, and all Pakistan sponsored weapons and gadgets were found on the killed terrorists who were trying to infiltrate from there. So that attempts by Pakistan does continue. So therefore, we cannot lower the guard certainly, but I'm sure the powers that be and all the security forces leadership is going to take the correct review. But we are in a good spot in Jammu and Kashmir as of now. But I think vigil is eternal, has to be eternal going forward. But General Bhatt, thank you very much for your insights and for giving us the kind of your views on how Jammu and Kashmir looks at the moment, and the continuing support of Pakistan in sponsoring terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much for your time. We'll come back to you when an opportunity arises again. But for the moment, it's thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitin, and it's always a pleasure to be there with StratNews Global and be able to give my views. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So, viewers, do keep watching StratNews Global. You know where to reach us. You know our social media handles. Our YouTube channel subscription is open and it's free. So do subscribe in larger numbers. Tell your friends, family, and acquaintances. We bring you always a different perspective. Our attempt is to have a very sober discussion on issues that are relevant both in the strategic aspects as well as in the security and foreign policy domain. For the time being, it's goodbye.